All right, good morning. Welcome to Tech Teacher Support. I am Chris, and today this is our final installment of Let's Build Our First App. So this is part 5. If you want, you can go back and watch parts 1 through 4 and get to where we're at today. We are on the final part of Let's Build an App, which is called Polishing the Interface. So we're going to go through that here. And again, parts 1 through 4, build the app and show you how we got to where we are. And then later today, I'm going to build the app all at once in a complete live stream. But anyways, you've made it this far. Congratulations. We are essentially done writing the code. We've built the user interface. We've tested it over on our iPad, and everything looks great. You've done an incredible job. The final chapter of the book, and what we're going to do today, is called Polishing the Interface. And again, we're using Intro to App Development with Swift. You can find that on the Apple Bookstore. It's free, and it's made by Apple as a curriculum to teach students and teachers how to build an app. We went right to chapter 17 and built the Colormixer app. And I'm going to show you that over here so you can see where we left off. And then we're going to polish the interface by doing some user interface, some UI tweaks and adjustments. So I'm going to go over here to the big screen. And what I want to show you is the iPad. And this is the app that we're building. This is where we left off. And I just wanted to show one thing because I had some questions about that. So let's go over this really quick. All right, here is our iPad app. This is the Colormix app that we just got done building. And again, I can click the button. You should see the red square. I can use the slider to change the intensity. I can turn on some green. I can turn on some blue. And we get the square just right, and then we hit the reset button and it should all reset. But some people asked why my screen was black and your screen was white. So let's go over that real quick. That is called dark mode. And I'm going to show you, I have dark mode turned on, but I'm going to turn off dark mode so you can see the white screen. And that should maybe look more like what you're working with and exactly what the book is showing. So let's do that. So I'm going to hit the home button on my iPad, and I'm going to go over here to settings. And I keep my settings up in here. All right. And when you pull open settings, I'm going to click on display and brightness. And that's 2 down from general. Okay. Now, if you look at the screen up at the top, it has 2 options, light and dark. And I am on dark mode. So I'm going to switch over to light mode. And you should see my screen reflect that. All of a sudden it is white. All right, and now I'm going to go back to my Colormix app, and we're going to launch that. And now you'll notice it probably looks more like yours, which is a white background instead of a black. And again, we can turn on the red, adjust the intensity. Let's get a little bit of green here, and maybe some blue. All right. And then again, we can hit the reset button. So for those of you who I was confusing by having a black screen, I just wanted to show you why that was and why you may see that on your computer too. It all comes down to whether you have dark mode turned on or off. That's going to change your app in some different ways. And when we get more advanced into coding, we can look further into that. But I just wanted to show you that's why my screen looks a little different than yours if you don't have dark mode turned on. Okay. So let's go back to the book. And again, this is 17.6, Polishing the Interface. All right. And essentially the app is working now. But what we want to do is make it a little bit easier for someone to use. And so you can kind of see on the screen over here, we're going to give the toggle switches a color. So it's obvious which one is red, green, and blue. We're going to give the sliders a color. So again, we can see what color you're sliding up and down. And then we're going to put a nice little border around the UI view to just separate it off from the rest of the screen. Now, what I usually challenge students to do after this is to go even crazier and really change this up. But we're going to go by the book today, and then you can see where you can sort of diverge from this. All right. So number 1, again, if we look back at our app, and let me pull this up, you'll notice that the switches regardless of which one you use, the switch is green. And if we turn them all on here, we have green switches, right? You'll also notice that the sliders, regardless of which color, are blue. And so what we want to do is we want to help the user that's using this app. So if your friend is using this, it would be nice if they knew that this is the red switch, that's the green switch, and that's the blue switch. Also for the sliders. So that's why we're going to make those changes. All right, and so we are right here where it says Tinting the Switches on your screen. I'm going to zoom in. And it says to correct the first issue, you can use the tinting... Oh, I'm sorry. My watch thought I was talking to it. Tinting the switches. So by default, the Apple switches are green. But we're going to go into the attributes and we're going to change that color. And that's called the Tint Color. And as you can see, it explains the on tint color and the thumb tint color. So you have full control over what that green color can be and actually what color your actual sliding switch is if you wanted to change that. But if you don't change anything, it's going to be the default green. So let's go over here and let's see how we change those colors. And we're going to use those attributes. So it says now change the tint for each switch to make the color it controls. So we are going to go right here. We're going to do number 1. And then it says to flip over to XCode and select the red switch and go to attributes. All right, so let's do that. So I'm going to command tab over here to my Xcode. And this is where we left off. So again, we have our interface builder right here. Let me zoom in for you. So here's our interface. And of course, we have that assistant code editor up as well. And here's all the code. And the last thing we wrote is this code right here for that reset button. All right. What we need to do is select one of these switches and change its attributes. And so I'm going to zoom in a little bit one more time. Here's our 3 switches. So we have red, green, and blue. So I'm going to select this red switch. All right. And then watch my mouse. If we go over here to the right and then we go up, we have these attributes. And these are sort of the properties of the switch, right? And so we need to change the properties of this switch. And if we look a little closer here, and I'll zoom in for us, you see we have this on tint and thumb tint. And that's what we just talked about in the book, right? That on tint is that green color, and the thumb tint is the color of the switch. And so since this is the red switch, we don't want it to be the default green. We want that to be a red color, all right? So I'm going to select this on tint, and here we go. It gives me a whole bunch of colors to choose from, okay? And down here we have orange, pink, purple, red, teal, yellow. So there are some built-in colors. If you wanted to make your own custom color, you could do that. But for now, we are going to make this red. All right. So on tint is system red color. Okay. Let's go check our book. Make sure that's what it wanted us to do. Yes. So right here, on tint, select a red. Use the RGB sliders on the color picker to choose a pure red. So again, if you wanted to create your own custom color, you can use the color picker to do that. But since the red is a built-in system, we're just going to use system red. All right. For each of the other 2 switches, follow the same steps to select a green and a blue. Okay. And it says here, notice nothing changes on your XCode interface because in the interface, the buttons are off. So you wouldn't see those changes reflected. All right. But right here, what we need to do is go to our other 2 switches and do a green and a blue. All right. So I'm going to go in and select this one. And this is our green. Well, we don't even need to change it. It's green by default. So on this one, I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to leave it default green. Then I'm going to go down to my next one here, select that. This one needs to be blue, so we do need to change this one. So again, I'm going to move my mouse over here to the right, and I'm going to go up. Make sure you're on Attributes, and here we are, the On Tint. So I'm going to select that, and here is System Blue Color. So I'm going to select blue. All right. Now let's zoom back out. And so to double check, I'm just going to click on these one more time. That should be red. Yep. That is default, which we know is green. And that is blue. Perfect. Let's go to the next page. Now we need to tint the sliders. And again, these sliders have a very specific names for the parts of them. So let's zoom in here a little bit. When you're defining what color you want the slider to be, you notice there's a few different areas. This first area, when you're moving your slider up and down, this is called the min track tint color. So this is the minimum part of the track. On the other side of the slider is the maximum part of the track, the max track tint color. So again, you have control over what two colors those are as you move your slider. And then, of course, the actual slider thumb button itself has a color as well, thumb tint color. So as you can see by default, the Apple slider, without changing anything, is a blue on the minimum side, a gray on the maximum side, and then a white button. But we want to change this to reflect the red, green, and blue of the switches. So we are going to do the same thing that we did with the switches, and we're going to click on one of our sliders, and we're going to go into the attributes, and we're going to change some of these. So for example, this first slider, we want that line to be red, and so we're going to go to the min track tint color. We're going to make that red. All right, so let's do that. So I'm going to switch over to XCode here, and here's my very first slider. All right, so I'm going to click on my slider, and I'm going to go over here to the right, and then go up, make sure I'm on my attributes, and let me zoom in here for you. And here we have the three terms we just saw: the minimum track, the maximum track, and the thumb button tint. All right, and what we want to do is we want to change that minimum track, that sort of color of that slider. We want to change that on this first slider to red. So I'm going to come in here to min track, and let's go down until we find that system red color. Perfect. Okay. Now the cool thing is if we go back over here to our slider, we'll see it actually reflects that on our scene, because the minimum track is what's showing. So that should instantly turn red when you make that. Awesome. Now we know that the next one is green. So let's click on this slider. All right, we're going to click on this slider. We're going to go over here to the right. We're going to go up to min track, and we're going to set that down here to system green color. All right, so this is the same matching green as the button. Awesome. And you can see it changed it green. And then this final one, well, kind of like the button, this final slider is supposed to be blue. It's blue by default. So we can just keep it blue. There's no sense in changing that. It is already blue. So here we have red, green, blue to match our buttons. Awesome. Let's go back and look at the book. Okay, on to page 140. So that was the end of the switches. We gave our switches their color. We gave our sliders their color. It's the end of the sliders as well. And so now we're going to add that border around our color UI view. And hang tight real quick. Let's go back and show you what that looks like. What they're saying here is we want this black border around our Color UI view. That's just to help it sort of stand out from the page a little bit. It's just a nice visual tweak to give it, sort of to make sure that it draws the attention of the user and it's obvious that that's the square that's changing. So to put a border on it, let's go back. And again, we are on page 140. And it says right here, we need to actually write a little bit of code for that. All right, because we need to give that a border and we have to tell it how thick that border is. So that'd be the width. We have to give it a radius on the corner. So if we want an actual rectangle that's, 90-degree edges, we could just do that. But instead, we're going to give it a little more design flair and we're going to give it those rounded edges. And that's called a radius, so a corner radius. And then here we're going to give that border a color, and that color is black. Okay, so we need to drop into our code and we need to type this in. Now, where do we type it in? It tells us right here. You can make this change in code. Switch to viewcontroller.swift and add the following lines to Viewdidload. Okay, so I'm going to go back to XCode. I'm going to go over here, and here's our viewcontroller.swift. So let me highlight this for you. So we're in our view controller. And again, let me show you, just in case you're not here, I'm going to show you over here on the left-hand side. All right. You want to be on viewcontroller.swift. Okay. Now what we did is we just pulled up the actual viewcontroller.swift main screen as opposed to having it split with our editor. But again, if you want the editor and the storyboard up at the same time, I'll show you how to get back to that. So again, I'm going to go over here to main storyboard. And then you're going to want to make sure up here in editor that you have assistant turned on. All right. So whichever way you do it, if you have it split like mine, or if you have just the view controller, we need to add a little bit of code in here. So let's do that. And again, I'm going to clean up my windows a little bit. Let's shrink this so we can see it. There we go. Okay. Now I'm over here in viewcontroller.swift. And again, you can get to that right here, viewcontroller.swift. And it says we need to add some code to the Viewdidload function. So let's zoom in a little bit here. If we go up and we start looking at our code, remember this first function right here, Viewdidload. This is what's going to perform actions that will be performed when you first load the app. And we have this update color function in here that we wrote earlier. We're going to add a little bit more code to this. So underneath, right here, under update color, we're going to add in this code. And here's where we do it. I'm going to pull the book up here. This is the code we need to add. So let me highlight that for you. And what I like to do that you've seen from the earlier things is I like to push this right down here. And then I like to move this up a little bit. Now again, our theory, we don't like to copy and paste code. We like to type it every time. So sometimes you like to have it on the screen so you can type it. And that's why we do it that way. Some of you may have the book over here on another device, so you can read and type like that as well. However you do it, I'm going to start typing this in. So we have 3 lines of code. This first line is going to set the width of the border. So we have color view dot layer dot border, capital W, width equals 5. So essentially we're saying our color view, which is our box, we're going to put a layer on it with a border, and that border is going to be 5 pixels thick. All right, we're going to hit enter. I might be able to zoom in on this a little bit for us here. Yeah, there we go. Now, next line, color view dot layer dot corner radius, capital R, equals 20. And again, this is for those rounded edges as opposed to those squared off edges. So we're going to give it a little bit of sort of rounded edge design here. We'll hit enter. And then our final line of code, color view dot layer dot border color equals UI color dot black dot CG color. All right. Zoom back out for you. So essentially what we just did is those 3 lines of code is we put a 5 pixel border on it. We made the edges rounded and we made it a black border. If you want a thicker or a thinner border, you want a different color border. If you don't want the edges rounded, you can see right here in code how easy it is to change that. If you want a blue border or a white border, you could just change this black to whatever color you wanted. So what I want to do now is go back to the book and make sure that that's all we needed to do. So we put those 3 lines of code in. Let's see what the book says next. Okay, next step, disabling sliders. For your final refinement, you want to prevent each slider from working when the switch isn't turned on. So in other words, there's no point in moving the sliders around if you haven't even turned on the color for that slider, right? So that's what it wants us to do. So let's do that. And we're going to come in here. Let me show you. Okay. Sorry about that. I just lost the... There we go. Okay. All controls have a property is enabled that allows the control to be activated or deactivated. So I'm guessing what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the slider until the button has been clicked. So let's see how we do that. So we're going to add a new function here, add a new method. Add a new method to make sure all of the sliders are enabled properly. Okay, so we're going to write a little bit more code. And again, this is to make sure that the sliders are only available when your button has been clicked. Okay. So I'm going to bring this up just a little bit more. We need to add this new function. So I am over here. If you can see my mouse, I'm over here on my code. All right. And right before this function, update color, I'm going to put my mouse in here. I'm going to hit enter. And let's write our new function right there. So FUNC. And this one is going to be called update, capital C, controls. Okay. So we've created a new function, update controls. What does this function do? Well, let's write it out. So we're going to put our bracket in here. And the first thing this is going to do, it's going to take our red slider is enabled equals red switch is on. So when we turn the red switch on, the slider enables itself. Not until then. Perfect. Let's do the same thing for our blue and green slider. So blue, capital S, slider dot is enabled when the blue switch is on. And then one last slider, our green slider. So we're going to say green slider dot is enabled equals, you guessed it, green switch is on. All right, so we've just written a new function, and what that does is it says very simply, only enable the sliders when the button has been turned on, not until then. So perfect. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to clean this up a little bit. And drop this back down. I'll zoom into that code one more time. So again, it's our function. It's called update controls right here. And there's 3 lines of code. Make sure it's within your brackets here. Each slider needs to be enabled when the switch is on. All right. And again, if you have any errors, if something's not happening right, if something's just driving you crazy, remember up here at TechTeacherSup, you can post your questions, or down here in the comments, and we'll figure it out together. Show me your code, tell me what's not happening, something really messing up, and we'll figure it out. We got this. So hold on tight. We'll help you out. Don't worry. Just let us know you need some help, and we'll take care of it. All right, so once you got this code in there, I want to back out. Let's go over to our book, and let's pull our book up. Okay, so we've made the function, but when does that function get used, right? So a couple spots right here. I'll highlight this on the page. This is page 141. This function that we just wrote, update controls, must be called whenever a switch is changed. Add this line inside the switch changed action. All right, so we're going to make a call to our function each time we change a switch to see, has that switch been turned on or off, therefore enabling the slider. So we're going to add update controls to the switch changed action. All right, let's go back over to Xcode. And what we're looking for here is our action, and we know that our actions are down here. Okay, we have a couple. Here's an action. This is reset. We don't want that one. This is our slider action. And then right down here is our switch action. So each time we click a switch, and what we need to do is add, not only do we want to update the color, so again, I'm right in here. Here's our action, switch changed. And remember, inside of these parentheses, update color. We're going to add that, and we're going to call update controls. Okay, so we've just added that to our switch changed action. Awesome, good work. Let's go back to our book. That's not the only spot we need to add it. There's one more. Then add a call from Viewdidload so that the sliders are enabled correctly when the app first launches. So let's go back to our Viewdidload. And that is right here at the top. I'll zoom in. Here's that function, Viewdidload. Here's where we did update color. So right under that, we're going to do update controls as well. So right there, we're going to put our new function, update controls, into the Viewdidload section. So when we first load our app, it runs that. Okay, so let's back out. Let's go back to our book. Now, there's a second part of this paragraph. Also, add a call from reset so it works when you reset the app. All right, so we need to put update controls in our reset action. So let's go back to Xcode. Let's zoom in here, and we need to find our reset. And there it is. Action reset. Right? And these are the things it's going to do. We need to add to this. It said our new function. Update controls. Oops, I added an extra space in there. All right. Update controls in the reset section. So we've added it 3 places. We added it to the switch changed function, the reset function, and the Viewdidload function. So 3 places you're going to add that new method that we wrote. Okay. Now, build and run the app. You'll notice that the sliders can't be used until the switches are turned on. And when the switch is on, the color matches the slider. Oh boy. This is our very last thing we need to do. We are at the end. So let's do it. Let's test it out. So here's what we do. We go back to Xcode. And we're going to go up to the top left here. We're going to do our build and run app. All right. I'm going to zoom in. Now you can see right here, it's going to send it to a generic iOS device. I want to send it to my iPad. Looks like that got turned off. So before I hit run, I'm going to make sure to set that back up to my iPad here. So now it should send it over to my iPad. Okay. Sometimes if you're running Xcode and you disconnect your iPad and reconnect it, it may not pick that up. So just double check that you're sending it to your iPad. Okay, so we're going to send it over. I'm going to hit this play button up here, build and run. And then let's go back over and we're going to look at the iPad. And then there it is. Now, we can see the fruits of our labor already. Our sliders are red, green, and blue. Let's see if we turn this button on. Is it going to be red? Yes. Not only is it red, you see that we have our border up there as well. So our border successfully drew around that 5 pixel of black border there with those curved radiuses. That is awesome. Let's try this green button. All right. Let's try our blue button. Okay. And can we mess with the colors a little bit? Yes, we can. Let's hit our reset button to double check that our reset button works. Boom. Congratulations. You have successfully built your first app. You have written the code in Xcode, built the interface in Interface Builder, sent it over to your testing device, successfully interacted with it, moved the switches, moved the sliders, hit the reset button. Everything works. You are awesome. So that's the end of the line, folks. If we go back into books, you'll notice that we're done. You're going to go into some troubleshooting here. Tells you some common problems. If you have any problems, you know you can post them to the Twitter at TechTeacherSup. You can post them right below here in the comments of this video, and we will help you figure out why your code is not working and why your app is doing something funny it shouldn't be doing. If you go one more page, you'll notice that it has sort of a quiz that you can take if you want to do that, some reflection questions, and a little summary here to congratulate you on building your first app. What you do next is get into Chapter 18. What that focuses on is how to build your app, so whether you run it on an iPad or an iPhone, it's going to change its interface. That's pretty cool, but let's stop there. You have successfully made your first app. You've been through 5 parts of this, a couple hours. There's been some really tricky parts with the code and where to put stuff and how things work, but you did it, and congratulations. I will be back later today. I'm going to take all of these videos and do it all at once, so you don't have to watch 5 parts. If you'd rather just watch 1 part, we're going to do it again. If there are anything that you have problems or questions about, again, let us know. But give yourself a pat on the back. You have built an iOS app. That is not easy, and here we are. Success. So thank you for joining in to Tech Teacher Support. Again, I'm Chris. If you have any questions, let me know. But make sure you show this app to your friends and family. That's my favorite part about doing this, is now I can take this iPad and show my friends, show my wife, show my family, and be like, check this out. I'm an iOS developer. I've got some ideas about how to build some other apps, and now I have a sort of fundamental understanding of how this all works. So awesome. Way to kick off the week, and we're going to do it again. So stop back, check in, let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you later. So thank you very much. Take it easy. All right. Peace out. Bye.